Good morning. How are you, Christian? How are you, Christian? Doing okay? Excellent.
To be back at Art in Action. Art and arts education for all is near and dear to my heart, and I can't wait to jump in and contribute to the amazing work we are doing. This is going to be a wonderful journey.
In addition to the Judy Smith Medicine, we are excited to announce that lessons and projects will be available for purchase. After a year of testing in classrooms, hosting community and corporate events, and collaborating with Catherine Applegate, author of the children's book Wish Tree, our Yarnbond Wish Tree kit for families and small groups will debut during training this year. All materials, the Wish Tree book, and the instruction for finger knitting and assembly are included. In addition to the materials, the Wish Tree book, and project directions, the classroom lesson will include art concepts and vocabulary, discussion questions, curriculum integration ideas, and reflection ideas. This is the perfect way to teach students about empathy and gratitude around the holidays. We have approached these new STEAM lessons by looking at how STEM can be taught through art while aligning with both science and art standards. Each lesson includes a child-friendly animated video based on the STEM topic and the materials needed to teach the lessons. Bundle 1 for grades K to 2nd will feature the following lessons. Changing weather, where students learn about changing the weather patterns and signs used to predict them. They use chalk pastels to draw a landscape with a character of their choice from 2 different types of weather. Shape characters, where students will develop their knowledge and understanding of basic shapes, learning how overlapping shapes create new contours. They combine shapes and then add facial features and expressions to personify their unique characters. In Mosaic of Earth and Moon, students learn that in both art and science, small pieces are combined to make something larger, like mosaics and planets. Students work in pairs or small groups to create a mosaic collage of the Earth and the Moon from small paper shapes. Bundle 2, which teaches grades 3rd to 5th, will include grid portrait, where students learn how artists use grids to create a wall mural from a small sketch. The process of enlarging an image with a grid relies on understanding units of measure and ratios. Students will sketch a portrait on a grid, enlarge the portrait, and then create an expressive collage with colored paper and materials. Earth's spheres, which teaches students about Earth's 4 spheres: the biosphere, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, and geosphere, and how the 4 spheres interconnect with each other. In small groups, students brainstorm and create the 4 spheres and the interconnection between them. They will use various materials to show a 3D representation of the sphere's interconnectedness. Pattern generator, where students learn how an array of symbols and repetition can create a pattern, like patterns on a fabric. They sketch different symbols and arrange them to create a stamp block to print an array pattern. With the changing demographics of students, especially in California, we're committed to developing a diversified multicultural curriculum that honors and is appropriate for our growing Latino population. Lessons include Mexican alebrijes, where students learn about alebrijes, fantasy animals, inspired by Mexican folk artist Pedro Linares. They discover how to balance a 3D sculpture using paper mache and paint it with brightly colored patterns to show texture. In Aztec Codex, students learn about Codex de Herbaria Mayor, featuring Santiago, the Aztec god of corn. They explore the importance that corn plays in Mexican and other indigenous cultures. They will also create a corn hospital and use repeated patterns to decorate the clothing. Students learn how Carrasco's Chicana and feminist voice influenced the creation of a portable mural depicting the history of Los Angeles. Students will design and plan a group mural inspired by the history of the community relevant to them, with each student contributing their own piece of the narrative. We look forward to sharing this school year and these new lessons with you.
Welcome. My name is Jana, and you are at the Program 3 training. And it seems we're starting about on time, but we do seem to have latecomers, so this room will fill up. So just know that I'll try, and I might have to backtrack a little since you guys are here and we'll have people trickling in. We are live streaming today, so you do have people out there. And this live stream will be recorded and put on our site later on, so you can reference it again. A little bit about myself. I have 2 boys, a 6th grader and an 8th grader, and they go to San Carlos School District. So I have known about art and action for 9 years, since my 8th grader was a kinder. And I kind of came through, probably similar to you guys, where I started out as a helper, not knowing what art and action was, and then I was recruited to then be a docent for some of the classes, and then the school coordinator. Welcome, come on in. I'm just starting because I don't want it to get too late, so anywhere where there's materials, we're gonna have some fun. I'm just introducing myself now. I'm Jana, and I have two boys, 6th graders and 8th graders. And became a school coordinator, and then in 2014 I met Kelly at hanging art at a library show, and was recruited then to be a trainer. And so I started doing off-site trainings like at other outside schools, and then started doing these 3-hour warehouse trainings here. That's my experience. I'll poll you guys now, although actually I'm kind of tempted to wait. But I'll poll you now. How many people here are just helpers, have only helped in the classroom, have never been the docent? Okay. How many people have been the docent? Excellent. How many people have never witnessed an art and action lesson? Okay, great. I'll give an overview and so on, so that'll help you guys out as well. How many have never attended a training here at Art in Action? Excellent, welcome, welcome. All right, you can have some fun. All right, what our 3-hour training we'll be doing today is I will be going through all of Program 3's lessons, 1 through 12, in some way, shape, or form. I might be doing the lesson, the full lesson, so you can get an understanding of the whole lesson structure. You guys will be doing it with me, so you do have materials out in front of you, paints and other mediums. I might just be demoing the project of the lesson. I'll talk a little bit about the lesson, the key concepts and stuff, but just demoing how to use some of the materials. Or I might just walk through and show you. Hanging up there are all the student samples, so feel free to look, that sort of thing. Around 10:30, if we're timed right, I should be about halfway through, and we'll take a 15-minute break. And then after the break, our executive director, Mary Carbolito, will come in and say welcome and give a quick hello, hopefully. All right, things to do before the lesson. At this point, how many have actually had a lesson already in their classroom? Okay, so things probably were set up in the school coordinator or your art closet coordinator, put together, so I want to say scrapbook, put together sketchbooks for you, got you your access code so that you can access the Teach site, things like that, so that the lessons can start rolling. If not, you want to talk with your school coordinator and get those things going if you're going to be the docent. Some things you want to do as a docent, you want to go to your classroom, meet the teacher, find out what their lesson schedule is, find out what they like to do in their classroom. How do they get their kids' attentions? Do they use 1, 2, 3, which tends to be more device, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, or do they just count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, things like that. Because if you use their listening device, then the kids will recognize and know when to pay attention and quiet down, that kind of thing. Know where your art materials are stored, so get familiar with your art closet, where you're going to put in things to take it to the classroom. Find out where the dry racks are. When you have a project, you don't want the kids saying, okay, I'm done, and then you sort of scrambling around and figure out where to put the stuff. Also, ask the teacher what the kids should do after they're done. When they say, I'm done, should they read a book? Should they go and group things like that? So find out what you want them to do for that. Because you will have a range of kids and how quickly or how slowly they finish their project. When the artwork projects are finished, find out what you should do with them. Some schools or some classes, they do art shows in the spring, and so they might have a box that keeps the whole portfolio, so then that way in the springtime, they have all 10 to 12 projects that they're going to be able to select to hang for the art show. So find out whether the kids send them home, or if they want them tagged, labeled, or put them store them somewhere for the art show. So all those sort of logistics after a lesson, what you should do, all this stuff. All right, how many people actually use the website? Have logged in and seen it, even this year or even in previous years? Okay, about 50%. So I will go through some of the basics of the website as well. You go to teach.artinaction.org, and you've got this left side menu, and then you have a top menu above here. And there's a lot of information that we provide for teachers and docents, trainers, school coordinators. One that we have, art resources, really handy to know if you're going to be a helper or docent. Any of the materials, any of the lessons that we have, we put here in this art resources, so that, for instance, oil pastels gives you the history, how to use them, the techniques, all the different techniques that we use in programs K through 8 are listed here. So remember doing blending or drawing with oil pastel. You might recognize the program 1 drawing with Kandinsky. Graffito, magic white, finished details. So you can use art resources to come here and review the medium just before your project, that sort of thing, and get a quick familiarity if there's something you forgot about it. Okay. Live streaming, there is our schedule. You've been seeing that pop up. It will go away soon. But this is the schedule of live streaming. We're doing one of every program. So, and they will, like I said, they will be available. So you can see that already. You can click and review recorded previous trainings that have occurred. All right. Up here in lessons is where you have the program grid. And we are going to be doing program 3. So you can head for the gentleman dressed in red. All right. Basic, just for those who have never witnessed a lesson, basic structure of the lesson is hopefully you have 90 minutes, but you may have only 60 minutes for the lesson time. You always have the same components. It's just how much time you get to use with each of those components, so that you have a talk about the artist or the genre of art, sort of like a bio about them. You give like three to four interesting facts. You have a discussion component about a piece of artwork that the artist or the society or the genre of art that you're studying, where you can have really great dialogue and discussion, and also teach some key principles, key concepts of art and art techniques. You have the sketch portion, which my classes that I've done with my sons know by now that when we do the sketch, I give them 5 minutes, I time it, and about halfway through, I give them a warning of like, okay, we're about halfway through, finish up. And then you have the actual demoing of the project lessons, of the steps and stuff, and then you have the project itself. And hopefully you have about at least 35 to 40 minutes to do the project itself. 3rd grade, they get more complex. If those of you who did how many people helped out with 2nd grade last year? There were more steps than when you were in kindergarten and 1st grade. And they start getting more complex, and the kids can handle it. Then at the end, if you also have another just 5 minutes of reflection time, kids can come up and talk about their artwork as one way of doing reflections. On our website, we have in each of the different lessons, there's actually a reflections half-pager that if you want to coordinate with your teacher, they can write down. It's a form that they can just ask questions about reflection about their art piece they did, and they can write it down. It's kind of a nice follow-up. If you don't have time to formally do it in the classroom, you can always just, when the kid comes up and says, I'm done, what should I do with it? And you say, let's take it to the dry rack. You could ask them a couple of reflective questions. How did you like it? What do you think of your piece? So that it gets them, at least on an individual basis, reflecting about what they just did and what they liked or didn't like, things like that, which is a good follow-up. All right, why teach art? I'm posing the question to you. Hands? Anyone? Or you can even just shout it out.
Get their creativity out.
Creativity out, definitely.
Express themselves.
Express themselves, excellent.
Use a different part of their brain.
Right side, left side, you're developing that right brain thinking, yes. Experimenting with different materials, things that they may have never been exposed to before, yeah. Any other thoughts? I'm going to add a couple. It can problem solving, taking risks, and when they take those risks and try and figure something out, perseverance and trying to keep going and get it right, try it over again. It builds community, having that discussion component where there are no wrong answers in art, there are no mistakes in art, so you can have the ability to have those discussions. It's fun. Art is fun. It's the time of the day when they get to really learn some different materials and techniques and just be creative, or even follow some instructions, but see what they can add to that instruction as well, which you can't do in math, but you can do that in art. 3rd graders, all right, let's see. What can I tell you about 3rd graders? They can read instructions from the board, so that for a lesson I would typically put today we're going to be doing the artist. I might say project. And I might put some simple up to like 3 instructions. Third grade, as you explain things, you have that reinforcement of a visual of what it is. You could also just print it out, make a quick Xerox copies and give one to each child, kind of thing. They retain information better. So your bio and discussion and the information that you give about the artist and the piece of work, you can give them a few more facts now rather than maybe only 1 or 2 facts like you were doing for the kinders. You can give them 3 or 4 facts and start just having that discussion. The other thing is they've now got 3 years of art and action under their belt. They've got these terms that hopefully we've been reinforcing that you can start pulling in and reminding them, and they should be able to give that input as well in the discussions, which is good. They are beginning to be more aware of their peers, their classmates around them and what they are doing. Sometimes that can be kind of a distraction. So they might start talking more during the project time. So there's a little bit of trying to manage that and make sure everybody stays focused and keeps doing that. But they also you might see a little more like copying or like a group of people doing, oh, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. And it's pretty natural, but you might see that as well. They'll test your limits. That's when you start hearing, okay, you outline what the project is, and they say, well, can I do a bird? We're doing Starry Night. Well, can I add this to it? And it's your discretion to figure out, yeah, or no, is it within what you're trying to teach them for that particular lesson? Because there are times when there's going to, like, total creative, do what you want to do. There are other times there might be principles we're trying to teach them, and so there are specific steps we're having them do. So you might just say, we're trying to do it for the sake of learning this. And then if they want to go some other way, that's fine. But the other thing is when a bunch of them start asking, can I do this? Can I? And they just start listing things out, it can be a time sink during that discussion time. So then you can just tell them, you know what? I will come and talk to you afterwards and let's discuss it. So that way it sort of ends that everyone else saying, well, can I do this, and tests what the boundaries are, that sort of thing. And like I said, my last bullet here is time checks and management. All of the projects get a little more complex now, but you still have sort of the same amount of time. They can listen to direction, but they're still going to kind of wander around, so you just need to kind of keep an eye on where you are. Say about halfway point of the project is where you want to be in the time that they have, kind of thing. All right, and that's third graders. It's really fun. It's a lot of technique that's happening now. They're the second grade, they're learning about all the different artists and different colors, the primary colors. We'll start introducing secondary colors on the color wheel, analogous colors on the color wheel. And so a lot of the lessons are basically trying to look at those different techniques now. So some pieces are very creative, some pieces are more technical and may seem less creative, not just sort of drawing and free thinking in that sense, but it's to have them try and learn some sort of concept that we're trying to teach them. All right. Here we are on the lessons page for program 3. All 12 lessons are listed here. Up here you have an overview, and it's a PDF that you can print out. You can give this at the beginning of the year and let the kids take it home. It's a summary of each of the different artists they're going to be learning. What we like to do at my school was we like to also print this out at the art show and have it there in a couple different areas so that the parents, when they come to visit, see their kids' artwork, could read the different artists that they were based on, because the tag would say, you know, their name, inspired by what particular artist, that kind of, and their teacher. So these are handy. And that's right here at the top of the lessons page. Once you go into a lesson, you have here in the left side menu, you've got the artist biography. When you click on it, this is always handy.
Johannes Vermeer.
There's always an audio sound bit of how to pronounce the artist or the society that we're focusing on. Information about him. Map. So you can see where Vermeer was from. Planning ahead gives you what kind of prep you might need to make. In this case, you only pre-lesson preparation. In this case, we only have a sketchbook, which was already created. The discussion. Every discussion lesson that is in the video.
In this lesson, you will learn about the artist Johannes Vermeer and his still life painting, Milkmaid.
The transcript basically is written down so you can read each of the different lessons that are posed in the video, so it matches up. Project directions. We give you sort of some warm-ups if you want suggestions that you could do with the students, and then the actual directions themselves. You can print that out right down here in the projects list, directions list. And then reflections, like I said, you could do it in the classroom or at the end of the class. You could do it individually. And then there is also this form that you can print out. And it's just a half sheet. And it's something even the teacher could do if they wanted to follow up. And it's nice to have them, if the teacher did it later on and followed it up, and then you tape it on the back of their project. And then at the end of the year, they have a portfolio with the piece and the reflection. And it's kind of fun to kind of go back and say, oh, yeah, I remember doing this. Oh, this is how I felt, that sort of thing. So that's the reflection piece. And then, very importantly, downloads and resources. All of the different handouts that come with the Paper Plus product and the projects are here. So if you can't find one of the templates or one of the handouts, you can always print it out and get copies that way. Okay. All right. And the last and most important document for you as docents is this print teaching notes. How many people have used print teaching notes? I use them all the time, right? It's just a PDF that you can print out, and it gives you a quick overview of the different parts of the lesson. So there's your masterpiece you're going to be discussing. There are the key concepts within the masterpiece that you want to try and teach the kids. Some quick bullet points about the artist himself. The discussion questions, again, the same exact text as on the website. There's vocabulary here. Setup, images, and the actual instruction. Okay. So that's always handy to print out and have available. All right, let's get started. Johannes Vermeer, he was a Dutch painter, born in 1632, and he was around 43 years old when he passed. So, in Holland, does anyone know where Holland is?
I've been in Delft actually.
You've been in Delft.
And it's all about him and the white and blue. Pieces are from there.
Excellent. Yes, he lived in Delft, and he was actually, he did very few paintings in his lifetime. He only did about 40, so he was very slow, careful, and meticulous with his paintings. And most of his paintings are based where he lived in a 2-room house with 14 kids in Delft. And so going there, I'm sure they have a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff about him. That's a great experience. You might ask kids, like, have they ever heard of Holland, which is now actually, we know them as the Netherlands. In the Olympics, they're the orange and blue teams. During the Winter Olympics, you can put in a few details that might pertain to them. You can certainly have a map of Europe, and I always like to show a map of California and then wherever their location is so you can see that relationship geography-wise. He painted in a style called realism. Can anybody guess what realism would be? You can shout it out. Go ahead.
Looks like real painting, perspective, color, shading.
Looks like real painting, perspective, color, definitely. Real, it does say, looks like the real world. They didn't really have cameras back in the 1600s, 17th century, so the artists were the cameras. They were the recorders of what was going on. And Vermeer really liked to paint everyday life. He liked, and he typically had everyday life of what women were doing. So a lot of his subjects in the 40 paintings that he did are very similar with a woman doing everyday work, everyday sort of activities. This particular one is called The Milkmaid. It was painted in 1658, and it's only 18 by 16 inches in size, which isn't very big. If you think about it, it's like 2 pages in size. And so if you can see the details, I'll try also putting it up on here. You can also click on the master right there and always be able to see that. If your classroom has screens, smart screens and stuff these days. We still like to use the posters. We still like to, at this age, they might still actually come down to the classroom, the floor, and sit in front of you to do this discussion. All right. Let me ask you this. Channeling your inner third grader, and we're going to have a discussion about this painting. What do you see? Yeah. Definitely a lady who's pouring the milk. In a room with a lot of light coming through the window. So there's definitely a window. You can see the light. Does that light coming through the window add anything to what's going on with the rest of the picture?
Yeah, I think it's focusing the woman in the object instead of what she's doing.
So the window light kind of focuses, actually highlights the woman in the light. Nice.
Which makes the realism like more 3D.
Makes it more realistic. What time of day do you think it is with this kind of light that's happening? And the task that she's doing? And maybe in the morning? It's a nice sort of soft light, wouldn't you agree? Vermeer loved to put in these details, and with that lighting, how realistic do you think the cloth looks? Here's a poll. Who thinks it looks really realistic? Raise your hand. Who does not think it looks very realistic? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's a matter of opinion. It is decently, I think, it is pretty realistic. It feels like you can certainly see the highlights. You can definitely see the shadows and the draping of the cloth. Look at the bread. Does that look realistic? What makes it look realistic? Texture. What's the texture? Okay.
Rough, you know, like
Crunchy, I heard. That's a great adjective. Rough. So taking the cloth, he did it nice and smooth, but he still had those highlights in there. The bread, he still has highlights and shading going on, but he then put in that texture. So he really focused on details of texture and to make it a very rich scene. Put that back here. So the key concepts I really wanted to point out, kind of get you guys to arrive at in the discussion, was highlights and shadows, textures, smooth and rough, and the light source. So by through that discussion and observing what was going on in the painting, you get to you arrive at those concepts that we're trying to teach you. All right, so today, I did forget to mention that in front of you, you do have what's happening, and on the back is the benefits of teaching art and volunteering. We will put that on the website at some point and let people know where it is, but that's for you to take home. You have like I said, some of these lessons we're going to be doing, you have a piece of sketch paper in front of you. So you can grab that. We are going to sketch. And what we are going to sketch today is we're going to sketch the shape of a cone. We're going to use charcoal. I'll explain to you. That's going to be our sketch phase. And then what we will be doing after the sketching and learning about the shading with charcoal, then we'll be painting on a pre-printed piece of paper, the color wheel, and a vase. And with the vase, we're going to do highlighting and shadowing. But first, let's do the sketch. One thing I tell all the kids about sketching and the sketchbook, and in the very beginning when they're younger, I ask them, why do we sketch? So I'm going to pose that question to you. Why do we sketch in a sketchbook or on paper?
Just to get an idea what we're gonna do.
To get an idea of what we're going to do. Definitely ideas.
Practicing.
Practicing, I'm sorry, go ahead. What was that in the back?
I was just gonna say just to practice what you're gonna.
You also have a sketch. Where do I put it?
Practicing, definitely. And practicing and scale. Where am I going to put it? Definitely. With practicing, I would encourage you to start saying maybe warming up. Because when they get into 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade especially, and they have to practice music instruments, it starts becoming a negative word. Say warming up. It may be warming up with your arm, warming up around the paper, and definitely scale and where it's going to go. Composition. Excellent. You guys gave me 3. Great job. Yes?
I'm like thinking like we are transporting in 1600 where there's no computer where you can delete and start all over. You have to choose your best lines
Yeah.
afterwards. So you will warm up and then you choose what it looks better as a circle without computer assistance or help. So you will see messy stuff and it's okay.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. The 4th one that I always say, and this ties in, is it's facing that blank page here instead of on your final, what you consider your final project paper. So you're facing the blank page. You're visualizing on that page what it is, where it is you want it to be, or what those ideas are. And so that helps you start generating those ideas of getting warmed up and getting less fearful of that blank page. Okay. When we do sketch, I always have my kids from the kindergarten on, they get 5 minutes to sketch. Give or take a minute or 2, depending on what the project is and whether they need to generate a lot of ideas. In that 5 minutes, about halfway, I will say, okay, it's been 2, you have 2.5 minutes left, start getting your ideas down. And the reason I do this is because it prevents those kids from going into little details. They can't be like this, putting in all those buttons. And we don't want them putting in all those details yet. We want them going big, generating a number of ideas, if that's what they need, quickly. Because then, after the sketch portion, when they are introduced and shown what the project might be, they can take those and have more ideas to pick from and then drill down on the final page. Or drill down on some of they can still deal with the details on the sketch part, so that sort of thing. But for their project, they can have that time. So sketch, 5 minutes, time it, because it just allows the project to have more time, and you prevent that time sink in it, and like that time getting away from you. All right, that said, for Vermeer, if you can, set up a cone in the classroom and a light source. It's always nice. Or if you have a window where you can sort of get that nice Vermeer lighting in there, because fluorescent lights, if they're on, can certainly cast no shadows, no lights. But if not, you can always find sketches or images online. I've done that before and just put it up on like the screen because our school does use smart TVs. But what we're going to do is charcoal. You have in your pencil box charcoal, this black pencil-like chalk thing. Go ahead, grab the charcoal. We're going to sketch a cone and we're going to do the shading. And you're going to do it with the kids for this one because we're showing them a technique how to put in shading. So this isn't one where they're just sketching out their ideas. We're actually teaching them a technique. So do as I do. We're going to draw the sides of the cone. So we've got just a small top, maybe a small line up at the top of the paper there. And then we're going to draw diagonals down, narrow to wide. Then you can say, this kind of looks like my cone, right? Have fun with them. And then the bottom is not flat. The bottom is actually curved. So you're going to do a curve, like so. Okay. And I will say this, with charcoal, different lengths of charcoal are convenient. Like this charcoal is really long. If they get a long piece, they can break it if they want, or they can, which I'm going to personally do because it is too big personally for what I want to do. or if it's too long, they can kind of have it at an angle. Because what we're going to do is we're going to do shading. Pretend our light source is coming from this direction, from the left. Okay? So that, which is going to be the darker side? And I'll ask them, which is going to be the darker side of the cone if the light source is coming from, don't draw this, I'm just doing it for you guys to understand. If the light is coming from the left, which side is going to be darker? This side, yes or no? This side, yes or no? Yeah. So I'm going to take the broad side of my charcoal, and I'm just going to lightly, not too much pressure, go down along that edge from the top to the bottom. Okay? And I'm going to do it lightly all the way, a few more times, top to bottom, until I go to the center. From the center, I had a straight vertical line on the edge. It went along that diagonal, and then I slowly straightened it out. So that my strokes are hopefully kind of in the same, going in along the same shape as, and direction as the cone and the angle of the cone. I'm using it lightly, and then what I'm doing is I'm going over it again to get it darker. I'm using the same amount of pressure. Okay? So that I have a darker edge here over on the right. Going to the middle, it's lighter. On the left side, is it totally white on the left side? It shouldn't be. You have a little bit of color. So I'm just going to put, again, a very, very light along that left edge. But notice how I left the center over towards the left kind of light. That's the highlight. Right now you can see all the strokes of the charcoal that I created. You can use your finger, or if you don't like the texture of charcoal and chalk, you can always give them a small paper towel. And then what you do is you can blend. So now what I'm doing is I'm going in the same contour as the bottom arc, and I'm dragging my finger from the dark to the light across, just to kind of blend it. Okay. Then I might use another finger, because now this one has been used up and kind of dirty, got charcoal on it. Doing the same side, the same kind of blending on that left side, just to sort of soften it. As you can see, as I blend it, that dark gets kind of light again. You can go back over and put in a little more of the dark. Okay. That's the sketch. Basically, we're just trying to show them a highlight, dark to light, according to what light source we have. Okay. All right. So the sketch is one. This particular one, you actually do it together. For the project, like I said, we're going to be painting the color wheel, and we're also going to be painting a vase. So the color wheel, you can either have your own painted version of a color wheel. If you don't happen to have one in the classroom, then that way you can have it for your lesson. Very easy to paint. You can also purchase, in our art boxes, they do have a smaller color wheel. Or somewhere in the classroom, maybe you can do a larger one. But it helps certainly, since we are painting a color wheel, to review the color wheel. So kindergarten through first, we've been going through a lot of the colors of primary colors. Can you let me know what the primary colors are? Red, yellow, blue, those three colors. Does anyone remember maybe hearing a little bit about secondary colors? Orange, green, purple. And they're secondary colors because I heard someone say you mix them. So yellow plus red equals orange, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making our own color wheel. We have a pre-printed page here with the color wheel. They're even handy and labeled for you. We'll start with the primary colors. So you're going to use your temper brush, which looks like this. You guys aren't, but I will to show you. We're gonna have you guys just do the vase, okay? So we're going to use the temper brush, which is the stiffer brush, and we're just going to start with one of the primary colors. So I'm going to start with red. And all you're going to do is just go along the edge there and fill in that color. It's an exercise in reinforcing by doing or by creating that color wheel. When I'm done with the color, I do need to wash the paint out really well because I'm dealing now with so again, just reinforce to wash out your brush. Paint the bottom of the water dish. Paint the sides that way, and then press it down so you squeegee it out to get the water out. And then, of course, when you're painting, or any of the art classes, have paper towels handy. Because then all they do is they just, again, paint the paper towel to get that color out. Okay? All right. I'm just going to do half of it because they'll do the primary like I said. So there's red. I'm putting in the yellow. I did do a faux pas, and I will admit it to you guys. If you guys do a faux pas with the kids or a mistake, admit it. Rule of thumb, when you're painting, you want to paint the lighter colors first. What color did I start with? I started with red. What color am I doing now? Yellow. So remember, rule of thumb, I should have started with the yellow and then did the red. No harm, no foul. Foul. How am I going to make orange? What's the formula? Red and yellow. Take the yellow, take a lot of yellow. Put it on my palette here. Also, when you clean out your brush, and you're going to need to clean it out between each of the colors because you don't want them mixing yet unless you are intentionally mixing them. Make sure you get a lot of the water out or else the temper does get runny. Red. When you mix a lighter color and a darker color, you want more of the lighter color and just a little bit of the darker color. Because if you do the same, it's going to go dark really fast. And then you just start mixing more and more paint. So I got a nice brush full of the yellow. I'm putting it over to the side. I am just taking right now a dab, a corner dab, and show them this of the yellow, of the red. Mixing in, and I will, don't have to, and now mixing it in. And see, even just that corner dab, how much orange, how red orange it is. I might pull in just a little more yellow, but I think I'm happy with that orange. All right, so a lot of yellow, very little red. Again, just paint in that pie wedge over there. Okay, wash my brush. Because I'm done with it right now. Please start teaching the kids, if you haven't yet, don't leave your brush in the water while you do other things. It ruins the brushes. It ruins the glue that holds the metal to the wood. And then with tempera, it's not as bad, but with watercolors, which the third graders start doing more of, those soft bristles will just start curling on you. So when you're done, just lay it on a plate, lay it on a napkin, a paper towel, something like that. All right. We've done these three. What I'm going to have you guys do is if you can take the white paper here. Yeah. And just draw with the charcoal or a pencil. It's up to you. A simple vase. It's just a straight line on the top with that lip and the round curve. Draw your own vase. Because now what they're going to have the kids do, once we've put in our color wheel of blue, green, and red. Then what the kids can do is they can now pick what color they want their vase to be. I'm going to do it with that orange that I had already mixed. You guys, once you have your vase drawn, you can mix a color that you want. I'm going to do again that yellow with just a dab of orange. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this vase one color right now. It's my base color. So I start filling that orange. And reinforce your brush strokes. Really need to kind of follow that contour. Just like when you did the charcoal drawing of the cone, have it follow the shape of that vase. It lends, those brush strokes show, so it lends to the form, the shape of that vase to help it curve, make it look like it's a curved, rounded vase. Okay? Go ahead and mix your color and paint in your vase color. Okay. Yes.
Any color, because we don't have red. So looking at primary color.
We didn't put. We had a previous training where no one used the red, so we didn't put it out. So if it's okay, green, blue, or yellow.
So that we don't mix.
You can mix blue and yellow to make green. Ignore the green paint because that's actually for another project later on. And if you want to mix your own blue and yellow to make green.
Okay, didn't do that.
Because the idea is to do realistic and shades. It's cool to have the two primaries to do the
Yes.
lighter.
If you want red, I can bring it. I can hand you. You want some red? I have no problem giving you some. Okay.
I have another logistic question.
Yes.
Are we allowed to use white and black?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we will use white and black. We will be allowed. What I'm doing right now is I'm going through the project like how you would go teach it with the kids. Okay, so the first thing we're doing right now is just putting in our base color of what our vase is going to be. Yeah. Because the next step, and some kids make guesses, the next step is going to be putting in highlights, shading, tints and shadows, shading. Highlights and shadows, tints and shades. Okay? A tint. A tint equals white plus hue, or the color that you made your vase. A shade equals black plus the color. And you might have this written on the whiteboard before class so that when you tell them this, you have reinforced it. But as someone has guessed, we are going to make this vase look more three-dimensional with tints and shades. Okay, so if everyone has their vase, I'm going to show you what we do with the tints first. I'm going to take a little bit of white while my vase is still kind of wet, just a little bit on the brush, not too much. And I'm going to brush it in, and hopefully, I didn't clean my brush. I left it with the orange paint on it. Because now, as I put in my tint, white plus the color, again, following the contour of that jar, you get the natural highlighting. You want to still be able to see the base color of your vase, the orange. Okay. How are we going to put the shading in? What's the formula? Black plus the color, right? When they do black, I don't know if you notice on your palette, mine has a little bit heavier, but on your palette, you get way less black. I put out way less black for you guys than I did all the other colors, because darker the color, the less you need. If you put too much black out, these things go dark really fast. So I'm just going to use just a little bit of black on the tip there. On the other side, I've decided my light source is coming from the left. So on the other side, I'm putting in the dark, the black. And as you can see, it took very little for that black to go really, really dark. Okay. If it's dried a little too much at this point, you can always add in, have more of that base color, the orange there. All right. There's another thing about Vermeer's paintings that were actually started to become well known as called pearls of white. When you have a shiny surface like a vase that's ceramic glazed or glass, what happens when the light hits it? You get a sparkle. Yeah, I like that description. A reflection, pearl of white. So that's the last thing I'm going to do is right over here, I'm going to dip my corner in the white, and I'm just going to maybe put like a little spot to show that reflection, that pearl of light. Okay? All right, and that is Vermeer. So it's very much about learning shades, tints, and the color wheel. Gonna wash off my brush real quick. Any questions about Vermeer? No? All right. Let's see. All right. The next one is African textiles. And that's a pretty typical lesson. We discussed, I gave you some information about the artist. We discussed his piece and some of the different key concepts about it. We did a sketch, and then you do the project and sort of explain. And hopefully, I think I said in the very beginning, we're going to talk about the artist, we're going to do this sort of sketch component, and then we're going to do a project of the color wheel. So I like to try in the very beginning of the lesson, sort of introduce just the different components. If I can, have time, put it up on the board so they can also see then what they're going to be doing. African textiles. This one has two pieces to it. There's actually a handout. Sorry, my mouse is not being cooperative. There's actually a handout that is a kente cloth, and then there's a poster if your schools have the posters, which would probably be in the art closet. Well, the art supplies are. And then there's a poster of the Adiri cloth. And so there's sort of two different discussions that you can talk about, because with the Adiri cloth, it was based, comes from Nigeria, and it's a blue and white dyed fabric where they stencil Nigerian women of Yoruban nation created these, and they developed this technique over 100 years ago. It's, like I said, it's white with an indigo blue dyed cloth, but they get their shapes by putting starch as a resistance, as a preventing the dye from maybe taking a hold as well there. So that's how they're able to get the lighter and darker shades of that blue, is by putting in starch as a resistor to create the patterns. Whereas with the kente cloth, which is part of Ghana, in the country of Ghana, this is a woven piece of fabric. And so it strips a cloth that they do the weaving on with the weft and the wane of a loom, and then they take those strips and actually sew them together. so that you get a really beautiful parallel lines and textures going on according to the weave and then what strips they decide to sew together to create that. The kente cloth, about 150, 200 years ago, would have been only for royalty. It was very expensive, and so, and then, you know, years and years later, as the country, their folks started getting rich, they were able to actually afford it. And so now it's more ceremonial, but it is still a very rich kind of cloth that's used. With the Adira, they would have been used. This would have been used for wraps and dresses of women. All right. So that said, we're going to do a discussion just on the Adira cloth. Here. All right. I told you how the textiles are made. I might point out to the kids, what are some of the shapes you see? Go ahead, point out. Shout them out. What? Triangles, crescents, squares, circles. Yeah. Leaf shapes. Definitely like some of these leaf shapes here. Looks like a sheep. What does this kind of look like? Flower? Sorry. There were the triangles. There are some of the crescents, squares. What kind of lines do you see? Vertical, horizontal, or diagonal? How many see horizontal lines? Raise your hands. Yeah. Definitely. How many see vertical lines? Definitely. How many see diagonals going on? There is a lot of geometric patterns going on here. There's also repeating ones. Some of the repeating ones. I see one here. Does anyone see it's matching? I heard down. Right there. Oars or paddles here. The artists move your eyes around the page. They put a lot going on here, but it moves around. They have a lot of things going on. They have parallel lines, which help to sort of give you a focal point or focus or anchor it down, but then they have lots of different repetition going on in pattern, which engage and make it kind of interesting. Because what the kids will be doing for a sketch is they will be doing their own simple paper cloth weaving. When I demo any kind of sketches, I created a really simple, this is just a sheet protector, a piece of like chipboard from a frame and the sketch paper. Because if I need to demo a sketching in front of the kids, it's a lot easier for them to be able to see it if you either do a sketch with like a black Sharpie marker, or in this case for me, I use the Expo dry erase. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be just sketching really quickly different geometric shapes and patterns. Organic, like a flower. Or, I like that, or I thought that was kind of interesting, but I'm going to put triangles instead. Let's see, the crescent moon's always a nice shape, but maybe I want a couple of, or maybe it looks like a Pac-Man eating dots. Yeah, who knows? Let's see, hard, simple shapes. So in that 30 seconds, you know, you can have a plan in your head. Show them how you just created a bunch of really simple shapes. Some organic, some more geometric. Okay? And they get, this one I'd only give them like 5 minutes. With that in mind, what they do for a project is they do their own, like I said, paper weaving. And it has multiple woo! There it goes. They have multiple components to it. This is going to be a step-by-step. After you have them doing the sketch, this is going to be a step-by-step process because there's what they're doing is they get the black paper, they get the green and yellow strips. There is preparation work that you get 12 by 18 paper and you need to cut them lengthwise into these 2-inch strips. They get green and yellow strips. They also get red and blue strips. So you also need to cut these clearly on the 12-inch length side so that you have these strips. What is the first thing I always have the kids do? What's the first instruction? I forgot to remind you of that on the first lesson. Always write your name on the back. Yeah. Once they've written their name on the back, they each get 4 strips of paper, and I think they get like 6 of these. They're going to be weaving, like I said, so you want them to tape it down. Okay. These ones are a little short because you do get 12 by 18, so they would actually go to the edge of the page. If you wanted it to have like this sort of natural border, then you would be doing that, taking out that like half-inch cut, just so you know. Okay. You want the kids to tape down the longer strips in alternating color, because what they're going to be doing next is they're going to be paper weaving. The long strips are the warp. Up, down, warp. That's how I remember it. Both ends in P's. Up, warp. The shorter strips going horizontally are weft. Left, right, weft. Left and weft. That's the way I personally remember it. So they're going to take either the blue or the red. They can decide that. And they're going to go up, over, under, so that they get that first strip in there. Okay? I think they go all the way to the edge. This has actually also been glued, by the way, so that's why I can't go all the way up for demo purposes. They're going to take the next color, and they're going to do under, over. And they're going to alternate. Again, over, under, over. This is the way that weaving occurs. If you wear a sweater or something with like a loose weave in it, you can sort of show. They can look at their own, they might have a piece of clothing to show how the pattern of the textile works with that over, under, over. So then I'll say, for the next one, what are we going to use? What color? Red. Well, how are we going to start? Under, over, right? Okay. And so it starts creating this just very pretty textile. Once you have all the pieces in, I'm not going to go all the way through. That's when you then give them some glue to spot glue it. They'll just put dabs of glue under each of the ends. So that then you can untape it. Gently, of course. The kids should be able to remind them it's just a dot of glue, not a huge squeeze, just a dot here on all the different ends, all the way around. Okay. Once that's intact, they basically created this woven piece. Over here on the side in the website, underneath the masterpiece artist, you have examples. If you can bring an example when you're introducing the project, that always is helpful to a visual. On the website, you can always print up one of these. We have various student samples. This is where they're headed with it. So they've done their weaving part. You can pick which one you like to, feels is a pretty good example. I'm going to go with this one. They're going to be making a stencil. Get everyone to this point, have them put it aside. They also get this 3x3 thicker, heavy stock paper, cardstock. They're going to be creating their stencil from those images. Let's see, I had done, I kind of like the bar with the triangle. They need to keep their designs, and when you have them doing the sketch, keep them really simple. The Adiro cloth, a lot of those, the large shapes are pretty simple. And explain to them, you want to keep it simple as you think about your ideas because you will be cutting them out as a stencil. Once they have their design, do a simple little fold and snip like this to get it started. We don't want them trying to jab their scissors through it, that sort of thing, to get this started. And then they're going to cut out that design. Doesn't matter, the piece that they're cutting out doesn't matter. What matters is the square piece, because that's going to be the stencil. You might ask, has anybody ever done stenciling? Some kids may have by this point. Okay. I'm going to cut that out. All right. Got your stencil. And then I'm going to add my stencil to one that's already made here instead of so we got one that's another trainer probably has done. I'm going to add that stencil, so I'm going to take my tempera. You've got to have that stiff brush. I'm going to dab it just in black. I'm dabbing in black, and then I'm literally also, and this helps them to practice what they're going to do to stencil. Hold it straight, their paintbrush straight up and down, dab it in the black, dab it somewhere else on the palette so that they're, one, you're getting excess paint off it, two, they're already practicing that motion that they're going to be using to actually stencil, because they're going to want to keep the brush straight up and down and just go up and down as they stencil along. So that I'm going to lay my stencil down, and I've decided to put it right here on the blue, and I've decided to orient it, I'll orient it that way, okay? And then I'm going to hold that stencil down, and I'm just going straight up and down. I'm holding the stencil in place and just going straight up and down. Quick short dabs, put the stencil down, and you get the arrow that I just made. They can exchange, say, hey, I really like the crescent moon you made. I really like the diamond you made. Would you like to use mine? And so that way, you can also plan out other designs as well. It's kind of a shared project. All right, and that is the African textiles lesson. Dry. All right. It's a fun one. So just remember to tape down the strips. Weave is weft. Warp is up and down. And spot gluing. At this point, they can use the regular, glue, things like this. You might use a little brush to brush it on. You might, if they do this, just do a tap. Spot glue. Some people still like to use the Q-tips in the cups or the little bowls. If you do the Q-tips in the cups, leave the Q-tips. Don't have your helpers or you prepare the glue and then leave the Q-tips in because they get really soft and wet. So I usually hand them a cup of glue and the Q-tips so that it will last longer. All right. One of our more famous lessons and more famous painters and probably most well-known artwork is Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. This is one that gets you do in 3rd grade. And if they've seen this with the art shows, and so the minute they see it, they're like, yes, we're finally doing Starry Night. It's a fun one. It is definitely famous. Vincent van Gogh, certainly he's a Dutch, he was born in Holland, but mainly lived and painted in France. Expressionist painting. One fact that I told in kindergarten, I might ask, do you remember what I told you guys in kindergarten? how no one liked his paintings at the time, but now these paintings go for millions, like 100 million, 80 million dollars, sort of thing. So I like to see if anyone remembered that fact. He's always known for using really strong colors, showing these brush strokes. Wow. And I might ask them, do you remember what these really thick brush strokes are called? That thick paint. In Spanish, it's what? Wow, I'm not even trying to repeat that. But we do teach them in the kindergarten year, it's impasto, thick paint. And in kindergarten year, they did get thick paint. Do you remember that? Yeah. They're going to get it again. So you can remind them, hey, you're going to get to use thick paint again to show those thick colors. That's amazing knowledge. Great. You can talk about colors. You've got certainly cool colors going on down here of the greens and the blues. And then you've got some warm colors going on to show some of that movement of the yellows and the whites and stuff going on. Analogous colors. If you want to try and throw that term in there, this will be their first introduction to what analogous colors are. Analogous colors are colors that are on the color wheel, not opposite. These are complementary colors. Colors on the color wheel where they are opposite of each other. And so you're going to get really nice contrast. Analogous colors are when you're going around the color wheel, so that the color between yellow and red is orange, but the color between orange and red is more like a red-orange. So what kind of contrast? You can ask, what kind of contrast are they going to get? It's going to be high contrast or low contrast? Low, right? When you talk warm colors, you're talking on this side of the color wheel. Those are analogous colors. When you talk cool colors, you're talking about this side. So you've got the blues, greens, purples. And so when you put the analogous colors together, it's a lower contrast versus you use those complementary. So you can introduce that if you want with Starry Night. Okay. All right. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be doing our own Starry Night. We do a quick sketch. Everybody is doing a Starry Night, and it's sort of a technique in movement, pattern, repetition of lines and stuff, so that I like to do this as a step-by-step with the kids. Say, okay, we're going to work together in their sketchbooks. Let's quickly do a quick sketch. We're going to do some rolling hills. That's definitely an aspect of Starry Night, and I'm still got that there, so here, let me at least change that to you so you have that on you. My mouse is just not happy. So you've got these rolling hills and mountains that we're going to put up in there as our horizon line. And then we've got definitely like a small village up here. We're going to keep them simple little houses. They don't have to be very detailed, but it is a village. So we're going to vary it a little bit. That kind of thing. We're going to put in crescent moon. You can make it a full moon. What kind of stars would you want to put in? Doing it fast. And then we're going to have that big crazy tree. When you discuss and talk about Starry Night, you can talk about what's in the foreground, which is this huge tree going on. You can talk about what's in the background, the village, the horizon line, that what I just sketched out. Okay? All right. For the project, we're going to paint it. I'm going to have you actually paint it, so you do have black paper in front of you. And I'm going to walk you through the steps of painting a Starry Night. You know what I forgot to do, though? Got to give you the good stuff. Like I said, with Starry Night, we are using that really thick paint. We use rice paste to thicken it up. About one of these bags, which is I think about 4 tablespoons. It's in the, yep, the Paper Plus box comes with the black paper and the rice paper. Rice paste. That 4 tablespoons make about a half to 3/4 of one of these like water dish deli cups. You just put it in.
Using the wheat paste?
What's that?
It's the same thing as using the wheat paste?
The question is the same thing as the wheat paste. It is, but we just found with gluten and that sort of thing, just we switched over to rice paste.
I think at our school we have the wheat paste.
Yeah, either work. We used to use the wheat paste. And it's perfectly fine. We just
The same consistency?
Mhm.
I know with the wheat, I guess maybe it's using too much. It gets
yeah, and same with the rice. If you use too much, like I actually had premixes like a while ago, and the training on Saturday, they're like, it was so thick. The nice thing is you can always add more paint to thin it out. So, because you want the consistency of like frosting. So that I'm gonna put a thing here for me, and then I will let you each take. There's kind of sharing it. Take like a spoonful, a dollop. That's a little much, but yeah, because it's not a huge piece of it. That's good. Like a heaping spoonful. And you can see it just, I mean, you can even see how it just fluffs right up like frosting. Okay. Because what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this impasto paste. So I will wait for it to go around, but I'll explain. You can take your pencil while we're waiting, and we can draw in our horizon line. So our horizon, like I said, was those mountains. And let's see, I will use white oil pastel just for you to be able to see it. You could do this with the kids if you want, so they can see it as well. It's just whether you want to break out the oil pastels or versus just using your pencil and the kids can see it up close. But for the sake of you guys being able to see it and for you demoing to the kids, you might want to use like an oil pastel so they can see what they're drawing. So there's my horizon line of hills. First thing we're going to do. Yeah. Is that the last one? Excellent. I'll come get it for you. Thank you. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the sky, and we're going to use that cool, thick impasto paint. Hold on, sorry. All right, so get a nice, good heaping amount on your brush. We're going to paint the sky like Van Gogh. So we're going to add, and we're going to use that thick paint. Put in swirls. Put in movement. Channel your inner Van Gogh as you brush it on. Get nice thick coverage. And you really want thick coverage as well, because for the second part of putting in that Van Gogh sky, which will be the stars and the moon, the thicker and wetter your paint is, the more you'll have to work with when we're putting in some yellow and white later on. Okay? You guys are covering a 6x9 piece of paper. I'm covering a full 12x18, which is also what the kids will be using. So you probably want to have a couple of buckets of it made, which it should handle the amount that we give you for the rice paste. Notice as I was laying it down, I'm not working it too much. I'm really trying to let that thick paint be there. So I'm not going over and over and over. I did a couple of brush strokes, went in, got some more. Everyone's got thick, nice, thick, swirly sky? Great. because the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add tinted swirls. How do we do a tint? What's the formula? White plus the color. Well, the color is laid down, so now we're just going to add white. So I cleaned off my brush. I'm just going to take some white. Think Starry Night in those swirls. I love the swirls. So I'm going to go down, go up, swirl it around, get some more white. Maybe do another one, go backwards so that it starts out like that. Maybe start here. All right. I've got some definite swirls in there. Wash off my paintbrush. And have them wash it off, because the next step is I want to put some repeating patterns to really sort of mimic these dashes. Again, what Van Gogh is doing with those different color brush strokes. And so to add that kind of element, I'm going to use the end of my brush. Not the bristle end, but the handle end, as a way of etching, scratching out the paint to create some texture and pattern. So maybe like along this one right here, this white one, I might put in some dashes. Along that white swirl that I had created. So what I'm doing is I'm etching out the color down to the black paper. And I might put, maybe I'll put some longer dashes, switch it up a little. Have paper towels handy, of course, so that they can kind of wipe it off if they need to. So below I did short dashes up here, but now I'm doing some longer dashes to change that pattern, that rhythm. I kind of screwed up a little bit here. It's all right. I can figure that out, reincorporate it somehow. If you mess up, point it out. Show them, figure out your plan of action first, but point it out and show them how you're kind of dealing with a mistake in your artwork. Okay. Might do one last one, maybe just right over here. It's kind of like that magic white. When you're taking out the white and the blue, bring it down to the black. Kind of like that effect of the magic white they do with like the oil pastels, you know? All right, what else do we got? Then after that, we're gonna put in the hills. You might find out everyone done with their etching out of their pattern. If you're not, it's okay, you can always go back, but let's go on and now do the hills, okay? So we're cleaned out our brush. We're gonna take green, lots of green. And we might just dab, while I've got the green on there, I might dab just a little bit of black on the corner. It's not quite a double load where you put paint on each side, but a corner of it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put those hills in, and then as I paint the hills, that black kind of just appears. It blends in. So again, it gives a little bit of depth and layer to those brush strokes of the hills. So I grab some green again, reload my brush, grab just a dab on the corner of black, go on do the other side. And paint in those hills. Okay. Things far away are dark, right? In Starry Night, But as you get closer and things come up a little bit, they got a little lighter. So I might now take a green, and I might put just a dab of yellow. Just a dab, just like I did the black, and come down here so that it starts lightening it up a little. It just varies. Do it in sort of these hilly brush strokes. Dab that yellow in just a little bit. All right, there we go. Everyone's got a hillside. Everyone's got a starry night, the beginnings of a starry night at least. A windy night actually right now. I would say it's not a starry night. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to again, after you've cleaned up your paintbrush, we're going to use the blunt end of the paintbrush, the handle, to etch out two different elements. We're going to etch out the tree. It's in the foreground, it goes off the page, so we're going to etch out this crazy, that kind of crazy Van Gogh tree. Go all the way up into your Starry Night even. Leave that there and we'll paint that last. The other thing now we're going to etch out, remember from our sketch, the small houses. Tell the kids, don't lean their hand on their painting. They gotta just hold it up like this. Put in some of those houses that we had had. Some tall ones, some short ones. You know, the more houses they have, the more of a village it looks like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The closer they are, the bigger they are. The farther away they are, the smaller. Some of mine are starting to dry out, but that's okay. There's my village. Okay? You can etch out little rectangles for windows, some doors. Basically, we're now doing our sketch by etching it out of the green paint. Once you've got your village in, take a corner of that tempera brush, just a corner of it, and you can dab in windows. Some people are home. Dab on the painting, then dab in some more yellow. I'm starting to use up my yellow. Okay? All right, we've done the hills, we've done the village, we've done movement in the sky. Now what we want to put in is our moon. And I'm going to replenish my yellow because the moon and stars takes yellow and white. Oof. Lots of paper towels for this one because you do want to clean out the okay. It would be better. Tempera requires really the stiffer brush, so I would say if you can do smaller tempera brushes, but go ahead if you want to use what you have available to you. Yes. Okay. The question was whether they could use a smaller brush, which is actually a watercolor brush, and a soft bristle. It's better for tempera to use the stiffer brushes, which you can get in different sizes. Okay. So I dab my brush in yellow. I'm going to paint my crescent moon here. I'm going to paint what I want to be for some stars. They can be X's like this, or you can just have them as dab circles. You can have a little of both. Be mindful of where you etched in that tree, because clearly it's not going to show up there. Okay. I'm going to wash out my brush, and then I might actually use some white with that to basically kind of highlight and put a halo around it. So maybe I will, again, around those yellow stars and even the moon, just to sort of emphasize, give it that starry night look. Can you guess what I'm going to do next to these halos? What can I do with the other end of my brush, the brush handle? Scratch out or etch out some pattern. Exactly. Right? So I'm kind of happy with that. So then I might actually just, again, scratch out some pattern. Maybe I'll do dots. Maybe I'll do like alternating lines. There. All right. Starry night. Last component to do is that tree. Just like with the mountains and the hills that you did, you're going to take, and I'm going to get a different paintbrush because that one is too used up. Here we go. You're going to take that green with a dab of black and just paint in the big, tall green tree that's in the foreground here. That you etched in. Again, try and use those brush strokes in the same way that the tree is shaped. Okay. Etch in some of the branches and texture of that tree.
Using black through the tree?
You use black and green for the tree so that it's nice and dark and pops out against the hills. And then you etch in texture and color, that texture. So Starry Night is basically the thick paint, doing a lot of the texture and swirling of the brush strokes, etching for the drawing part of it, of the different components. And there you have Starry Night. All right. Let's see, what do we have? All right. Albert Bierstadt, we're going to do that one, and then we will take the 15, actually, yeah, we'll do that one, and then we'll take the 15-minute break, okay? Albert Bierstadt is an artist who he was born in Germany but moved to Massachusetts, and he's a realistic painter. And he was painting at the time that cameras were actually invented, and so he was actually a really good amateur photographer. He would take photos of the West, which he was very fascinated with, and take photos and then make paintings from them. So his paintings are very realistic, very detailed. What you probably want to try and discuss and point out are the buffalo, how the one in the foreground, this is a landscape, you've got the foreground, you've got the background, and you have really big skies and really big trees. Point out how the buffalo in the foreground is bigger than the trail of buffaloes over here in the background. What kind of perspective are you? Where are you as a viewer standing? You're standing sort of down here on the ground looking at the buffalo, which makes that sky look really big because you're looking up and it's a whole lot of sky. He was really concerned with the fate of the buffaloes and what was happening, and so his painting sort of has these dark, moody, gloomy storm clouds coming in. That's sort of foreshadowing of what's going on. So it's dramatic. So some of the key concepts: dramatic, perspective, and scale. Same with the trees. Because what you are doing for a project is you're sketching a tree, and you can remind them, remember how in kindergarten we made those 4 trees of the seasons? Remember that lesson? Remember how we taught you a tree doesn't really look like this? That's a symbol of a tree. We want to remind them a tree, the trunk goes from narrow to thick, just like your arm. 5 branches. And then off those branches, you have smaller branches. And I'm doing it fast, right? You might have some roots down here that connect the land. Then when you put the leaves on, that creates the shape of your tree in a more natural. And I'm just doing small, quick ovals, and I'm doing this really fast. I'm not putting a lot of detail in, right? The other thing that they're going to do sketching, they can always draw their tree on one side. I use this semester, use a more permanent mark on this side. Then on the other side of the sketchbook paper, they want to put an animal. What kind of animals would you see out, out with the trees? You might see like a deer. With antlers, ears, eyes. A deer? Ish. You might see a rabbit, long ears, little body because I ran out of room, but that's okay. I get the basic concept right. Got that nose with the whiskers. Let's see, or maybe a raccoon. Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's see. I don't even know what a raccoon looks like. Let's see. Let's try a different animal. Try a couple different animals. Keep it simple, okay? Because what they're going to be doing, you have yet another piece of paper, white paper. What they're going to be doing for a project is oil, pastel, and oil pastels, which look like this. This is what your lid looks like. So if you want to get out your oil pastels, looks like this. And watercolor. They're going to be drawing for the project 2 trees and an animal. And the reason why we have 2 trees is because we're going to do scale. The first tree is in the foreground. It's big. The second tree is closer to the horizon line, so it's going to be small to show that scale. And then they're going to put an animal in. So, with the oil pastels, let's grab the green oil pastel. No, actually I'm going to start with the tree. I'm going to start with the tree, so let's grab the brown pastel. It's in the foreground. We're going to start with a big one. So we're going to draw that big tree in the foreground. Go ahead. Narrow the top, wide at the bottom. However many branches you want. Smaller branches. Okay. The roots down at the bottom. Get the big trunk down first. Then do a smaller one over here in the background. Maybe this one has a few. Okay. Once I have my two trunks in there, I'm going to put my ground of the horizon line in. And I put it in afterwards just because so that I wouldn't have a horizon line going through my trees. That's why I put my trees in first. So I've got a big tree, I got a small tree, then I'll figure out what I want to do for an animal. I think I was successful with a rabbit, so I'll do the little rabbit right here near the tree. So let's see, there's the ears. I may be less successful on here, but we'll see. And the eye, and I have no pink. So it'll give it a little red nose. Maybe it has a cold. And whiskers. I'll hold off on the whiskers. All right. I've got the basis of my drawing. Now I can start using nice, good coverage and putting in the trunk. I'm only going to oil pastel in the tree, the two trees, and the animal. I'm not going to do the sky or the ground, because the sky and the ground is going to be a watercolor wash. We won't torture the students by making them color in with oil pastel all of that paper. So I kind of made my branches, the ones closer, thicker. Okay. I put in brown. I think if you don't get, I don't know what colors we have in this 12-inch. Put this down for a minute. Okay. For the tree, you can put in a little black, some lines in there. Oil pastels, you can use your finger and blend. Right? That was one of the terms on that art resources page. So you can blend it in to try and get the texture of the bark and soften it so that you don't see all those brush strokes, the oil pastel strokes. Okay. Put in some of those lines in the smaller tree, right? All right. Then I'm going to take some green, put in just a few of the leaves, not all of them, with my oil pastel, because after I do my gradated wash for the sky and the ground, then I'm going to take a sponge and sponge in more leaves to sort of fill it out better. So this is just for these oil pastel leaves here that I just did a few of them, are more for some additional detail, additional texture. Get in my you can use a little of that lesson about shading to put in some definition and using a black and blending it in on your animal. If you lay down a color and then put it next to it on top of it, that also does a little bit of blending. You got that magic white. If you put that in there, see these spots where I didn't put all the gray in, but I'm not putting in white? That watercolor wash will not lay where the oil pastel is, so that's one way to. All right, rabbit. Because you're gonna use your watercolor brush, which is the soft bristles. You're gonna use the watercolors, and you're gonna use the lid top. Okay, because what you want to do with the watercolors, once your oil pastel is done and ready, you're ready to do the watercolor, you can use the lid and take blue. Let's do the sky first. We're going to take their blue, watercolor, and in each of these wells, I'm going to put some of this blue. I'm making 3 of them. So I made 3 wells of color. Then I stop putting in water, and I want to make a darker blue, which I'm putting here on the right. Dipping my brush in the water, I'm going to try and tilt it, but not as much. I'm going to add water to the far left, and this is going to be my lighter blue. So water is like white, it tints. To make that tint, you add more water with watercolor. If you want it darker, you add less water. Okay, so I've created basically a gradation of dark, medium, and light blue. So now I'm going to use those colors. I'm using my medium blue right now, just across the top. I'm keeping it as a horizontal. Skies have don't really go that swirly. They just go in a horizontal. Ooh, I'm using the wrong color, my tempera. And I went about halfway down. Now I'm going to use my lighter color, and I even added some more water to it to try and make it lighter. I'm trying to create a gradation down, darker to lighter, down to the horizon line. So now I'm just adding even water in. I didn't even dip it in the blue. Okay. At this point. By darker color, I'd like the sky to be a little darker, so I'm coming here with a darker color, and up above, adding in that darker. So now I'm using my that 3rd color that on the far right. Okay. I can even go even darker and go straight into the well. So hopefully, what you've created is a dark to light gradation. Flip it around, you can do the same thing with greens. Okay? So go ahead, create your gradations. Dark. To light. Now I'm going to go kind of fast. This is my dark over here. Putting it up there. All right. And there you go. The last part I said we're going to do is you're going to take the corner of these little sponges that you have in your pencil box. It might be, you might want to give it to the kids a little bit damp, not wet, but damp, because you're going to dip it in the green. You want to dip it in the green well there, and you can just dab in more of those trees, so it fills it out a little faster. Remember Toyo Hero? Stamping in those green. If you need to, put the sponge in the water, get more water onto it, and dip in. But that was too much. If something like that happens, just have a paper towel handy. Tell the kids if it drifts, and drip it. The small one. In the pencil box, you have these small little, yeah. These make great.
We put it right in the same.
Yeah, I'm putting it straight in the green well, yeah, which is kind of wet from mixing those colors. And I'm just filling in those trees now directly with the paint. It's kind of a shortcut. Rather than making them fill it in with oil pastels. The more concentrated and drier And there you go, beard's done. Okay. All right, it is 10:54. Let's take a quick break. Take about a 10, 15-minute break. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then in the last 5 minutes start gathering back in so we can get started in 15 minutes. And I'll let... Oh, but before that, any questions? Over the first 4 lessons we've done? All right. Just so you know, in the second half, it'll go much faster because I'll be doing more demoing and showing of the lessons so that we can get through the last 7. 8.
camera shy. Yeah. All
Welcome
right.
back. I would like to introduce our Executive Director, Mary Carbolito.
Good morning, everybody. As Jana said, my name is Mary Carbolito, and I'm the Executive Director for Art in Action. Very new to the position. I just started July 1, but very familiar with Art in Action. I've been affiliated with Art in Action for 14 years because I started sitting where you are. I'm a mom of my oldest one is a second year in college, and then my younger one is a senior in high school. So I started as a kindergarten docent. Did many of you start as kindergarten docents as well? You started in K, yes, a few of you. And then I continued through middle school with my students, with my children. And then I currently actually teach. This year is 6th grade at a small school in Redwood City. So I love it, and I think all of you probably do as well. And so I just wanted to thank you this morning. Thank you for your time. You're busy moms, aunties, grandmothers, but you chose to invest yourselves in art education for your child and for your community of children. And for that, I'm very thankful. We're very thankful for what you do at your schools. I will hope that you stick with us. In the coming year, in 2020, we are launching new lesson lines. You may have seen what we had talked about in our little video. We have a line that is called STEAM. We have Art in Cultural Understanding, Art in Social Justice, and Art in Wellness. And so we're very excited to launch these new lessons that will be in addition to our legacy line. Kelly Bravo, our Director of Programs, will be sending out a survey to you. And so I know it's just one more thing on your plates, but if you have ideas of how we can improve on what we provide to you to support you in the work that you do, we welcome that. If you have thoughts about what we do really well and make sure that we don't take that away, let us know. If you have ideas about the agency in general, please put that on the survey. But if you miss that opportunity to put those ideas on the survey, my email, I'm open and I look forward to feedback from you directly. My email is really simple, mary@artinaction.org. And so at any time, please just shoot me those ideas. We look forward to hearing from you. I hope that you have a great year. 3rd grade is fabulous. I'm looking at some of your pieces, and when I was a docent, I will say that I don't think any of the students were very intimidated by my work because I certainly didn't view myself as an artist, but actually through this program, I got a sense of my own confidence as an artist. So carry on, and thank you again for sharing this morning with us. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jana. Thank you.
All right, these next lessons we're going to be doing more me demoing and showing. There's a few more that you'll have you doing as well, but next artist is Johannes Vermeer. Oops. Okay. Johannes Vermeer was a surrealist artist, and surrealism is fantasy or of the imagination, dreamlike. In many of his pieces, very organic, very detailed, very surreal. So you'll have a lot of fun in the discussion. This one is actually titled Carnival of the Harlequin. Where's the Harlequin? This guy. So find him first when you discuss him, because this is actually based on Carnival of the Harlequin. But you'll get to just discuss all the organic shapes, all the crazy, wacky, weird words. You can ask them how many different figures you have. There's a dog, there's a being, and have some fun with it. Primary colors really pop out, the red, blue, yellows, a few of the secondaries, but mostly primary colors and how he used it. The realist part really is, if you look at the floor and the table and the window, So in other words, the background, that's pretty realistic looking, but then everything else that he puts on top of it and overlays is very surreal and very imaginative. What they do for a project and sketch is they create their own surreal mural. And you get basically in the Paper Plus boxes, which has paper for all 12 lessons, in the mural you get tan paper, you get a half sheet of yellow, and you'll have the kids take the half sheet of yellow, glue it down onto the tan to create that room. Okay, and you can walk them through that. That's a fairly quick exercise. They're just gluing it down. What they're building towards, and in the sketch, they'll quickly generate on their sketch phase just crazy, wacky, shaped characters. Some geometric, some organic, with facial features, body features as they want, that sort of thing. So it's a very imaginative project, this one is. There are two components that we do want to have them put into it. One of them is a ladder, and I'll quickly show you how to make that ladder. Besides the tan paper and the half sheet, you get a 6x9 assorted paper, so they can pick a color that they want. Walk them through step by step, everyone creating the ladder. All you do is you take a piece of paper, you fold it in half, you take your pencil, and you sketch half a ladder with them. And so you can show them, and I will use, I was going to use my marker had fallen on the floor, I know. So I'm going to grab this one. So you can see. Here's the top rung. It's a trapezoid shape, sort of in false perspective. So just like the tree, you're going to do that diagonal, narrow at the top, wide at the bottom. At that fold is where your rungs of the ladder are. So that they will be cutting out the negative space. So I've drawn, everyone see the half ladder? You can tell that about it. Remember, they don't want to cut on that fold. So they're just cutting out these trapezoids, basically, or parallel. Four-sided rectangle, not square. Look at, it's surreal, so the things don't need to be necessarily parallel, right? So this is perfect for imperfect lines. But then when you unfold it, there's kind of your surreal ladder. Walk that through with them of a ladder. Whoop! They can place it anywhere they want. Don't glue this down, but then don't have them do the gluing again until they, with paper collage, I always like the kids to get all their components, arrange it as they want it, and then say, now I'm ready for the glue. So that you've got the ladder. The other things that you can quickly show them are how to paper sculpt. Remember Rousseau in kindergarten with that grass that you made, if you remember that lesson at all. It had fringe, so you can always make small, halfway through cuts to basically make fringe. To make that fringe more dynamic and interesting, you can curl some of it. Whoop, you can even rip it off, which is perfectly fine. You can take that pencil, wrap it around it like this, and curl it so that it has a little bit of three-dimensionality to it. And maybe this becomes some character here with eyes over here. And it's some sort of facial expression of, ooh, oh no, and some patterns. And it's got some three-dimensional paper. You can make strips, again, wrap it around that pencil, like this. Just twirl, 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 pull it out, and you can kind of get paper curls. So the kids can have some fun with some of their different objects. Goodness only knows what they are because they're surreal things, and adding some texture to them. Okay. The other object that we have them make besides the ladder is a table. That can be more freeform for them. That can be the legs. You can have another color be the top, so that you basically have the ladder, the table, and then their shapes. I've composed it. I know where I want anything. I'm ready to glue. Go ahead, glue it down. Then what they can do is they can use black marker, like a Sharpie or a fine tip, and just add in those details of, like on this guy, I would take it and put the marker in for his expression, that sort of thing, and just start drawing around and adding character to their room. That's mural. It's a super fun one. The kids really enjoy when they get to add those details in, because it's just their imagination and whatever they want their characters to be. Okay. Get this out. All right. We always have a portrait every year now. And with our portrait this year, we do, oh, I can never get this guy's name right. I don't know why, so.
Domenico Ghirlandaio.
Domenico Ghirlandaio. I think I always say Ghirlandaio, so I always listen to that one. There's a few artists that I use that sound bite to get it. Domenico Ghirlandaio was a painter back in, oh goodness, the 15th century, 1487 circa. And the thing you want to point out clearly, it's a portrait of two people, a father and his son. Profile, frontal view, what's happening in the landscape behind him. Point out the frame. It's gilded, it's raised, it's got texture and relief to it, and it's very, very fancy. The people who would have had their portraits painted by these sort of kind of artists were very rich, so you can see how rich the frame itself is, the clothing and the texture, and the expression. You can ask them, what do you think the boy is thinking as he looks up at his father? What do you think the father is thinking? Woo! You can ask them, do you think it looks realistic? It looks pretty realistic, right? The proportions are all right. They have really nice shading going on. You can certainly see where the highlights are, the light source, that kind of thing. Because what you will be doing, of course, is that they will be sketching a portrait with chalk pastel. But the other part of that is that they will be sketching a portrait and then making, if you can, a frame. We do have handouts as always. This one has pictures of faces so that they can kind of see that sort of thing. You can decide whether it's self-portrait or if it's someone they admire, which can also be the way that it goes. But what we are going to have you do is we are going to have you also do a portrait. So if you want to take, you have 9 by 12 sketch paper. Oh, I got paint on my thing. I'm going to draw it in the chalk pastel. Usually we would do the drawing first to reinforce how to draw the face, but we're going to do it for the sake of time. We're going to do the actual project, which is the same thing, but in the medium. So you're going to be using chalk pastels. cover looks like this. Chalk pastels. A couple of things about chalk pastels. We've done them, certainly we did them in this program too. When they use them, it does create that chalky feel. Some kids may not like it, so you might use like a bit of paper towel. Could always act as sort of a wrapper that you can wrap around the paper towel like this, so that they decrease the amount of touching the chalk. Same for blending. You can use that same paper towel or another paper towel, fold it in half, and use that to blend chalk pastels. Small chalk, just like charcoal, small pieces of chalk pastel are a lot easier to use than a nice brand new full long stick of pastel. It creates dust. When we start drawing, you'll notice that it does create dust. Remind them as they're drawing and creating that dust, you take it, tap, tap, vertical, tap, tap, to get the dust to go down onto the newspaper, and keep working. Don't ever blow. You don't want to inhale it. You don't want to blow it on others, okay? So remind them just to tap, tap. All right. I must say, you're actually supposed to be using, we actually was supposed to have set out for you, but they weren't set out. So I will let you decide if you want to use them. And what I will do is these are actually portrait pastels. In that they differ from, hold on one second. They differ from the 12 color set that you have on your desk because, oh, you got one, okay, good. Because they have varying more skin tones. So if you see the difference, this one is more like a rainbow of colors, whereas this one, you can have a range of skin tones. So if you can get a set of the portrait, that's great. If you can't, that's okay. We'll show you how you can try and mimic it. Okay? They also have, like, if you purchase those larger 25, they have a better range of browns as well than these smaller 12 sets. All right, so you're going to pick whatever skin tone you feel your skin is. My son, we have in our family, we joke around that my family is a gradation of skin tones. I'm the lightest. My youngest son is the darkest, and then it goes myself, my older son, my husband, my younger son. So my younger son always picks the darkest color there is, which is fine, because he knows he's the darkest in our family. So pick a skin tone that feels you. How to draw a portrait. How to draw the face. We have a handout. On how to draw a face. Hopefully they've been doing this for the past 3 years so they can remember. First we start with an oval. You will have drawn a border. There is pre-prep work in that you will have to have drawn a border around the tan piece of paper, because there's two parts to this project in that we're chalk pastel drawing a portrait, but then you can create a frame with like a heavy manila 110 paper, something like that, that has like glue thing that looks gilded, paint it with acrylic paint or spray paint and put it on top and it looks great. Or if you can't do that, then what you can do is you could have them with glue create interesting designs, etches, create a template that covers their portrait, spray paint it that way. Or have them put their glue directly on this paper. If you can have a second 30-minute project time as a two-parter to this, then have them paint with like a gold acrylic paint their frame. So there are different ways you can actually frame it, but try and pick one of those ways to frame it because it really does add a nice level to it. All right, That said, you will have prepped in, put in a rectangle there to accommodate for where the frame is going to be. So within that rectangle, draw your oval for the face, for your head. Try and, fill the space so there's not a little teeny head and a really big area. Please ignore my my painting from the last project.
So it should be like through the whole space,
For
or like 3/4.
for you guys, where you're doing it on. I lost my. For you guys on the 9x12, I will say within that space, because you're going to want a neck and shoulders, right? You don't want it zooms in. So judging, about that size. Does that make sense? Okay. Since the paper that I'm working on, what the final project will be is 12x18, it's a little longer, right? You draw the oval, you need to draw that vertical line and the horizontal, cutting through the middle so that you have that cross. And I'm drawing it with a skin tone, so that way, and so make sure they draw with a skin tone. That way, when we color in the skin and the other features, these marks go away. They become incorporated, right? All right. So again, 2 footballs for your 2 eyes. Right? Almond shaped. I'm actually going to now grab my white oil pastel, chalk pastel. And I'm going to use the white to draw those circles in. Like we've done in the past, how we draw those circles of the eyes. Okay? And have this as a step-by-step. Okay? And then I will actually use my black to just put in some small pupils. Because later on, then I'll put in the eye color. Notice I still have a little paper around the pupils of the eyes, the black of the eyes, so that I can put in my eye color later on. I'm not going to do that right now. That's a smaller detail that I want to. Okay. So now I'm back to my skin tone color. I'm going to draw my nose. Remember in 2nd grade when we did the portraits and the charcoal portrait and the clay, we did a front nose instead of our upside down 7 nose. So again, it's start in the center, go about halfway down between the cross horizontal and your chin, and yeah, 3 circles, 1 light circles, right? 3 circles. Okay. I'm using my skin tone that I've been drawing with. Now I'm going to use a slightly darker color to finish off the nose, in the sense that I put the 3 structural circles there, but now I'm going to use a darker tone to do the underneath that creates the bottom of your nose and the nostrils, and then those C and backward C, just to create that rounded part. Okay? That's it. There's my nose. I'm going to put that darker color down again. And I'm going to put in my smile, which again, the corners of your mouth line up to your eyes. So there's the corners of my mouth. Here's my smile. Okay, just the beginning of it. Now I might take a pink or purple. Yeah, purple. That would be interesting. The upper lips are just 2 gentle little hills, I like to say. The bottom is that lower fuller lip. Okay. I've got purple lips. My ears line up with the eyes and the base of the nose. So the one here is here, around the eye, base of the nose. And it's not like a full, doesn't stick out a full C, right? It's more just sort of a lower, a smaller C with a slight curve to it. So there are my ears. Right? And as always, very importantly, your hairline doesn't start at the top of the head. The hairline comes down on your forehead. So there's your top of the head. My hairline goes, even though I'm in a ponytail, it does come across a little bit. And it meets down at the ear. You can feel hair there, even in a ponytail. So I'm going to bring where my part is down across my forehead and down to the ear. Same with the other side. It still dips down a little. So there's my hairline. And your hair doesn't rest right on your head. It does go above it, so see where that guide for your top of your head is? Finish off the hair like that. Right. Even though my hair is in a ponytail and it's kind of short, for the sake of my portrait, I am going to just sort of show it coming off maybe a little bit down here. Okay. Or maybe I'll change it up and I could add it and pretend I have pigtails. I'm going to do that. Okay. Then you can put in those lines to show the hair a little more. All right. You want to put in your neck. Your neck isn't this little teeny skinny thing. It does curve your jawline and then your neck. So figure out, maybe like around your eyes even is where it kind of goes a little narrow, goes a little longer, and then reinforce that chin. Okay? All right. And then last but not least, the t-shirt. Even though I'm wearing a black t-shirt, I'd rather be wearing a purple one today, so I'm going to make it my shoulders and my t-shirt. Okay. All right. Once you've got the basics in, then you can start coloring it in a little. So again, take that basic skin tone and using the broad side, start putting in the face and the cheeks and your nose. Just fill it in a little. Being careful not to go over the lips or over the brown that I've already put in for my nose. See, and this is where right between here, between my nose and my lips, I wouldn't mind a smaller piece of chalk to actually be able to fill it in. So that's where chalk pastel, sometimes small is good. Once you've used the broad side to actually fill in the color, this is where you want to either use that piece of paper towel or your finger and just blend it. So just soften it, okay? I still haven't done too much with my eyes. I haven't done too much with my nose because right now I'm going to just blend it and get the face color and base color in. Then I'll go back in and put in those details again for my eyes, like the eyelashes, the eyebrows. Got the color in my chin. Got the color in my neck. There you go. All right. With that, now I'm going to take again another darker tone, and I want to get some lighting. Pretend your light is from the left. Take that darker tone and gently, not pressing too hard, from that midline, which you still kind of can see a little bit, just add in that coloring. Right now it's going to look like I'm face painting myself, but I'll blend it in so it won't look like that. I'm just laying down some color. So that I get sort of that light and dark around the eye, around the mouth, okay? If it went too dark, what do you think you used to get that highlight back in? You use white. So on the other side you can use, I really don't want it to be this big, so I'm going to break it. On the other side you might use a little bit of white, where that chin raises a little. You might use it, if it got too dark on, you can also use it to counter if it got too dark on the other side. But I'm just putting a little bit of white highlight to try and create that. And on the nose, right, the curve of your nose, the tip of your nose might have a little bit of white. All right, you got that in there? Then, at this point, then I might use that dark brown that I used on the nose to go back in and put in a little bit better features of my eyes, the lines. Use the black to make my eyelashes. I don't have much of an upper eyelid, so I didn't put mine in. And my eyebrows up here on the top. Right. So I'm going to use that darker brown again to basically redefine some of that color of the lines. Not a lot, just to sort of redefine some of the places where I softened. The last thing I'll do is my hair. Try and put in the strokes, but this black chalk pastel is it's gray, that's why. But that's all right, because gray now will add to the black, and then it can create some nice highlights for me. You got lips. You got a lot of different components now that you can put in. Put that smile back in, kind of. Whew, that was interesting. And then your shirt. Then you can do the details of your shirt. And see how, like, as I do my shirt, I'm doing this larger coverage, that chalk dust is just falling down. All right. And then also do the background. There's your portrait. Okay. You guys keep working on that. So the next one is Yan Chui. Yan Chui is the Wang Yang Chi. He's an Eastern artist. He was actually really famous 4 generations. His grandfather taught him how to paint. He was a curator for the Imperial Collection. And so it's a use of positive space, negative space. Calligraphy brushstroke is the way that he painted this, which is very typical of Eastern paintings. Very little color. All this texture, dry brush technique he brought in. He also did some really beautiful details when you discuss it. The chop. They had that chop, which is the way that they do a signature in the 2nd grade. You have it again here in the 3rd grade. What they do for a project in the sketch is they do their own Chinese scroll, and it's a watercolor. You do a little bit of step-by-step, and then you want to paint the mountains with them and the water, just so they understand where they want to put the location of the mountains, so that, because if you say, oh, you're going to paint some mountains and then water from falling water, they might put their mountains down here. So step by step the first part so that they have the locations correct. The other thing that you need to consider is that you get 9 by 24 inch piece of paper. It is a scroll. In the Paper Plus you get a stick, like an 18-inch stick, and black yarn, because you are meant to hang it. And so there is pre-preparation work in that you will want to, about 1.5 inches down, fold it and pre-fold it, because otherwise, if you don't, the kids will start painting up here. And then you'll be like, oh, I need to fold this in order to hang it. So pre-fold it so that they know what they have to work with. In this particular example over here, if you look, and our school does this, we actually find like a tissue paper that's printed. And what we would do, this was mounted on top of the whole piece of paper, but we would actually just cut a strip along the bottom and have a top and bottom strip of that printed tissue paper. Really nice look. If you do that, again, you need to put a line where that tissue paper will cover, because otherwise kids might put something in that area. So there are 2 areas you need to accommodate for: the fold of the scroll, and if you put the tissue paper border. But it gives it a really nice look. All right, I was just over here, and now I'm coming back. All right. Your trio is a fun one because, let me just do a quick cleanup of my area so that I can. All right. Your trio, Maurice, your trio. Was a French painter. Yes. Yep, Paris, France. He was a gentleman who grew up in France, and his mother was a well-known painter, so he actually was taught by his mother. And he really loved everyday life in the streets of Paris. And he especially loved cafes, so a lot of his pieces are about cafes. This particular piece, which is called Streets in the Suburbs, painted in the early 1900s, is depicting a lovely street scene in the streets of Paris. And you want to discuss with them, you want to ask them, where's the horizon line? Because it's an urban street scene, it's actually kind of hard to find. Can anyone tell me? Do you see it? I see people going like this. Yeah, definitely there's a line. Is this the one you guys are pointing at? Yeah. This one's really handy to have a ruler on hand to show them. Because it's a one-point vanishing point perspective that you're teaching them. And so there is that line gesture that everyone is creating. There's your horizon line, right here where the street ends. So visually you're looking at it and it's drawing you in and you're wondering what's at the end of that street. That's the vanishing point, that one point. From that vanishing point, you can take your ruler, rotate it around, and it will line up to, look at the tree line. Look at that tree line. All the different points. It's kind of fun to give them, they're going to use rulers for this one, to be able to use the pivoting of that ruler. All these diagonals which create movement are called orthogonal lines because they are based off that one pivot vanishing point. And as you pivot around, those diagonals create the orthogonal guides of how to create like the roof line of these buildings, how to create the tree line, which then draws you all into that center point. What they will be doing for a project and you guys will get to if you want to as well. You have a last one 6 by 12 inch piece of paper. And what you're doing is you are also drawing a one-point perspective, vanishing point. You have rulers with you, so you can take your ruler. We're going to be doing this in oil pastels again. You're going to take the green and draw about halfway down the page across a horizontal line. There's your horizon line. On that horizon line, it can be in the center, it can be even off if you want. You're going to draw a dot. That's your vanishing point. From that is where you have all guidelines going around. Figure out in the background what it is you want. I'm going to put really quickly some trees. They're in the background, so they're small, right? They're not big. So is my forest. I'm going to quickly put in some trees. You can go slower than me, but I'm just giving you a sense of what's going on. There's your background. This is going to be an oil pastel drawing. It's smaller, so you should be able to, the kids should then be able to at least fill it in better, okay? From that vanishing point, what do I want to have? I think I'll have a river. So let's see. For me, I'm going to prop it here like this to try and show you. So for me, my river is going to go from here. There's my vanishing point. I'm just going to really lightly draw a line. There's my guideline. And then my other river is going to go here, starting right here. Maybe go over there. But I would actually like my river to be a little meandering. So I might follow that guideline, but put some curves in at least. so that it does follow the rules of the orthogonal guideline, but maybe it meanders a little. Okay? Get nice, good coverage. Anyone remember what graffito is? When you scratch in texture. So in my river, I could put in some waves. I could also even use a little bit of green on top of that blue and then put in those waves, because my river has a little bit of algae growth in it, and that'll give it a nice scratcher. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to again use that vanishing point to that orthogonal, draw maybe a really light line, and that will let me know if I have any trees by the river here. Remember, vertical lines stay parallel to the edge. This is where kids can get off, because they're like, they want to go perpendicular to the orthogonal, but it doesn't. It goes parallel to that edge. Keep the verticals verticals. But let's say I have like a line of trees there. This lets me show where that tree line is. A guide to the across the river, along that river. And then they can fill in with more, get a nice heavy coverage of what else is going on in the picture. They can add more in the background, but basically it's this one point, vanishing point perspective. You keep working on your Utrillas, and I'm going to move on. All right. The shield. We do a clay training. And it is October 16th and October 17th. The 16th is an evening 7 p.m. class, and October 17th is a 9:30 in the morning class, where we cover all 6th through 8th, kindergarten through 8th grade clay lessons in some way, shape, or form. I believe after the morning one on the 17th will be live streamed, so that'll be available. Basically, though, what they do is they learn about the Cheyenne Nation, and they learn about the shield and its symbolism, and they create about approximately 4-inch diameter piece, putting in symbols and patterns, putting on pieces of leather with beads and feathers. So, and they will cover how to do that in the clay training. All right, Thomas Cole. Thomas Cole is an artist who was born in England but moved to the U.S. when he was the age of 17. He was a self-taught artist, and he got in with a bunch of artists in Philadelphia and started doing that. And what he really started doing was sort of documenting the American landscape in really extreme and beautiful detail. So that his piece called Last of the Mohicans, based on the book Last of the Mohicans, has this beautiful landscape going on in the background. You've got these mountains back here coming up into the focal point of what's going on this huge cliff ledge and this rock face. You can talk about lighting. The big thing is that it's a landscape where there's a horizon line, which is where earth meets sky. And you want to talk about how these light colors in the background fade out into darker colors in the foreground. Because what they're doing is, so there's sort of analogous colors of this like light blue to a darker grayish blue to even some of that blue being carried here into the browns. Because what they're doing for a project is they're actually making a tissue paper landscape. And here's a great, you can take a picture of this afterwards, but here's basically sort of the phases of you put down your first color you're going to pick out analogous colors of tissue paper, the students. They'll cut out a landscape shape, they'll cut out a second one, and then they will put a piece of whole tissue paper, tracing paper on top of it to sort of fade it out. And then they will put one that's now in the foreground. So you sort of have background, medium, middle background, faded out, middle ground, foreground. And then the last thing they do is that they create like a dark brown or black silhouette in the very forefront as their sort of an object. So it creates this, and then you have also a template in there for a frame, the black frame, and so it creates that layered effect that Thomas Cole used in his paintings. All right. All right, this last one we're going to have you do as well. This is one Edgar Degas. It's called Racehorses. And it's a multi-step process, so you're going to want to do this sort of in a step-by-step process as well, because what you're doing is, I'm going to just, rather than waste time, you're going to talk about Edgar Degas's The Racehorses, and you're going to talk about how it's a landscape, what's happening in the foreground, what's happening in the background. But the thing that's happening in the foreground are the horses, and actually I am going to get the poster because it's hard to see. He was an Impressionist painter, and so he really wanted to try and express in very short ways the movement, the expressions, what was happening. And so if you look at the background, it's not very detailed. It's an expression. It's a quick jot of like what's going on in the background. But if you look at the foreground and the horses, he zooms in. You can ask him about the movement. You've got this strong parallel horizontal line, but as you look at each of the horses, if you're standing straight up like this, you're not moving. But as soon as you tilt, there's a hint something might be happening. As soon as you bend, there's the implied movement. So he's got the horses' legs bending. He's got jockeys who are vertical. Some are tilting forward. You have this guy even going off the page. So he has this nice sense of movement going off the page by the lines. And so here's another one where you can use a rule and say, you know, you've got this guy here, you've got this guy here, you've got this guy kind of leaning here with his elbow, and they're all going off the page. Okay. What they get to learn, and this is one of the first intros, and I'm going to have you draw a sketch of horse 2. It's a two-parter in that you sketch a horse and you also do a background. The background is basically just sort of a moody background with watercolor. Darks, lights, clouds, whatever they want on a 12 by 12 piece of paper. They can put in some oil pastel details of like trees, rocks, that sort of thing. That's the background. In the foreground, they will draw a horse on like a 9 by 12 piece of paper. Then they will cut out that horse and put it on that moody background and glue it down. So it's a two-parter. So what we're going to do together is we're going to draw the horse, because that part of it is kind of the interesting part of the exercise. And as you can see, there's basically a step-by-step process to drawing the horse. So you can do the step-by-step process of drawing the horse first, and then explain, now you can paint your moody background, you can cut out your horse afterwards and put it on. But in the beginning, sketch and do the step-by-step process of the horse. And the way that we do that is we're going to take our pencil. You should have one last piece of paper left. Yep. And you're going to draw a simple square, really light. We want to start teaching them to draw lightly, the guidelines. Things that clearly a square is not part of the horse, so that should be really light. You draw that square, because that'll give us the proportions of the horse, kind of. And within this, as you can see on the top, you draw 3 ovals. Draw the 2 in the corner first. Ovals, 3 circles. Draw the 2 in the corner first, because the middle one is dropped down just a little bit. You know how the horse's body curves a little in the dip? We're teaching them using basic geometric shapes to to give form in the structure of the animal, of a person, of a thing, of objects. Okay? Halfway down between, so if your circles are taking up like the first 1/3, halfway between that bottom half are the joints of the legs. So that I'm going to put a circle here and a circle right next to it. Those are the knee joints. I'm going to put another circle right along the same time, because same area, along that same line, 2 knee joints here. See that? So I've got 4 circles. Okay? Joints are connected on the outer part of that circle. So this large circle in the back, I'm going to connect to the right side of that circle. So I'm going to draw a line, literally as though you've got the curve and it slingshots off and goes to that smaller circle. Then I'm going to draw same side on the other side, on the left side, the curved side of that circle, of the bigger circle, to the curved side of that smaller circle. Okay? I'm going to do it for the front one as well now. I'm not going to do the back one yet. So that front leg, again, the outer side of that right side of the circle to the smaller right side circle. Left side of the circle to the left side of that circle. Okay? It looks kind of funny, but because then what happens here, back here, you don't draw the line, but it's like as if you're connecting the left side for that back leg, that left small circle, to that line, to the left side of the large circle, but it is behind that front leg, so it's only a small one. See that? But up here, you can kind of see it more. There's the back leg. See the same, doing that same for the front leg. There's that front leg connection. All right. Down here below, you're going to have trapezoids for the hooves. Sorry, my watch is. All right. So I'm going to draw 4 hooves. Kind of look like trapezoid. And then connect the back circle, right hand side of the circle, connect those legs. Okay? The neck is really just a big triangle. So if its head is up, you're going to have the point up here, and you're going to connect that circle in the front. It's always connecting the edge of the circle. There's that triangle. And then the head itself, as you can see on the tip of that triangle, the head and the nose, again, you're connecting those sides once again. So you can sort of see a pattern of what's happening. Ears are just triangles, right? The eyes, kind of this nose, mouth. Once you have this, then you start doing the contour. The contour is the outer shape. So where those circles dip, you're going to draw as though you're kind of connecting those circle edges, connecting that triangle, connecting that head, connecting that neck, the legs. The front legs, you only do a little bit of it. The back legs, you might do more of a curve, right? And then you start putting more of that line, and then the belly. And see how you start seeing the shape of the horse? And then after that, tail, however you want it to be. And the mane, however you want that. Kind of falls like this. Right? Okay. Then they'll take that and oil pastel it, whatever color they want. Browns, tans, cut it out and glue it down. Okay? That's Degas. 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade, you start doing drawings where you show the geometric shapes, the structure underneath, and start recognizing the geometric shapes. So you will see this technique again in 4th grade program 4, program 5, program 6. Just going to show you the last one, and then we will wrap it up. Any questions on Degas? Okay. Degas was actually a friend of Pablo Picasso's, and he and Picasso were actually the ones who really pushed Cubism and were the inventors of Cubism. And this is one you're definitely going to want to list out on the board because it has some very specific. His father gave him his first lessons. He did go to professional art school, and he really started exploring Cubism. If you look at other pieces of works, this is like the most toned down because he really does do also those lines and multiple profiles. Cubism is about straight on profile, straight on view, profile view, disjointed. What are the basic elements? Here's sort of this thing that's been cracked in half and slightly shifted. So there's a lot to talk about here. He also was a pioneer in paper collage, bringing in different textures. He would bring in newspaper clippings, patterned paper, wallpaper, and start putting it together. He would mock up something, and then he would paint it. So all of his final stuff were actually paintings, but they were based on these paper collages that he really started pushing the boundaries on that kind of thing. What they do for a project has very, very specific elements to it. I'm going to show you a couple. And then what I'm going to do is and you might want to write these on the board because they want you, and I'll spell it out. They want you to do 2 objects with patterned paper. Let's see if they have the. So 2 objects with patterned paper. There you go. 1 object has a positive and negative space to it. Probably this one where it's got positive, negative, black and white, although it should be more cut in half. There are your patterned paper pieces. 1 object cut in half with jagged edges. I can't tell if it's that one. Let's see if there's a better example. There you go. 1 cut in half with jagged edges. Patterned paper. I think this thing has the positive negative space where they actually use patterned paper as well. But basically they took half that guitar and split it in half. And then 1 object with 2 viewpoints. So that, it's hard to say which one that would have been. That's where you might have had like a top view and a side view. So you have multiple views. So there are 5 different pieces that they are specifically tasked to do to then create their collage. And again, with paper collage, you want to have them create create the different objects. Here's a good one. Example. Create the different objects, lay it out, get it composed, and then glue it down. And they create their own block. And that wraps up program 5. Any questions on Brock? Any general questions?
How to give the ideas in this one to the kids? Like what kind of shapes they should cut out in it?
The question was how to get the ideas out to the kids for them to actually figure it out. So for their sketch phase, have it outlined on the board. Have a list so they know exactly what they're doing with each of the objects so that as they figure out, maybe they do want to do a musical instrument, or maybe they want to do a cupcake. You know, there's my cupcake with some frosting. But this one is the one that I'm going to cut in half. And then let's see, something I was told to do like a part 2 views. So definitely my face is going to be my easiest one. How about, so maybe if I have a front view, but then I want to do, oh, I remember, let's see, like a side view, and there's their eye. I mean, they have to just think it through. That would be my smile, but then this would actually be my nose. There's my 2 views. Oh well, maybe that didn't work out. Okay, that was a good guitar. I like that, but I actually am gonna make it like this, and there's half of it is dark. There's my negative. The other half is that light. So they just sketch it out. So you need to lay out what it is that they have to brainstorm. And this is the last project of the year, so they're older. They've been doing the sketchbook in a planned time. Give them a little more time. This one's more complex, right? So maybe give them 10 minutes because they now need to think of each of the different objects. Quickly sketch in the book. And again, the sketchbook there and thinking of their ideas is really just a game plan. They can always then just get started and start working it. For you guys, if you do a couple little demos, do some really simple objects so that they understand, keep it simple because they have some other criteria that's going to make it a little more complex for them. So that's one way to help them sort of generate the ideas. But definitely list it out what's required. Any other questions? All right. You're all set for program 3. Have a great year.